See who's nervous now.
Have you got something to say about me? Say it to my face.
I already said it to your face just 2 minutes ago.
But we heard it in the reading round, and that wasn't a read, darling. That was It's like what your performance is going to be. Let's be honest.
One thing you mentioned was obviously Beverly. I was going to ask that because this was obviously probably the episode where that storyline. So obviously you and Beverly, there was some tension that episode with the two groups, and I think Beverly sort of was saying something under her breath, and you kind of confronted her, and there was quite a bit of tension. I was just wondering what that was actually like filming that, because I've interviewed Beverly, and she obviously gave her side of it. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear your side of. Because I feel like personally watching the episode, the way it was edited made it look a little bit, in my opinion, like you kind of reacted out of nowhere. But I was wondering if there was some context that we missed.
Oh yeah, I feel like the producers definitely did their thing in the editing room to make it look one-sided, to make Baby look like a little victim. But obviously, like, you know, like I remember watching it back and just went, hold on, like, listen, this is borderline, like, this is an interesting way to look at things. But I don't know, like there was a back and forth, but the thing with Beverly in that moment was like, you know, I don't take disrespect at all, and like there had been like accumulation of like a few of the episodes where she kept throwing digs at me in relation to like live performance, and you know, saying things under her breath that she was better than me at performance, and if it ever came down to it, she would beat me. And I was like, you know, there are a few things that I know I'm strong at. That's definitely one of them, and I would never say that I'm better than her, but I would definitely let her know and let my work speak for itself to like remind her what happened on that at the end of that episode. But I think the banter itself and the back and forth, like it got really hot and really awkward in the room. But also for me, I was just like, there was like a bunch of things happening. Like she was sort of like then twisting it around like I should be the mother figure, where she was antagonizing me. And then again, for me, I don't take bullshit. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you're right. I know you're in your feelings and you're a little bit insecure. But I was like, if you want a mom, I'm a Pacific mom girl. Like, I'll give you love, but I'll give you tough love. You're getting tough love from me today. And so obviously the wider fandom, majority of people that were like kind of non-POC were looking at it thinking like, oh, this is Kween is bullying Beverly. And I was like, if I was bullying her, you would know about it. Like, I could easily flip the script and be a bully. But I think in that moment, I was just going, no, I'm going to give you a mirror. And if we're going to banter and we're going to read, I'm going to read you back. And just because my reads are a lot harsher does not mean that, you know, this is bullying. This is just a conversation that's very passionate. And you're getting a very passionate way of me saying, no, carry on. Yeah. So yeah, I think the editing was a little bit interesting, and also they did that again with Hannah when Hannah was having the conversation with Beverly before Beverly got sent home. Like they kind of did the same thing in the editing room to make it look like Hannah just attacked her out of nowhere, and I'm like. And I think maybe in hindsight they were doing that to sort of make us look less than spanky in the final edit, potentially, just to make us look like we're not as balanced. But look, we're all as equally as shady as each other, and I think some of us are just used to, you know, keeping people accountable. I'm definitely used to keeping people accountable, so it was interesting watching that back. Definitely watching it.
No, I mean, I'll be honest, it was great TV, regardless of what. Obviously, as long as what I always care about is as long as the queens aren't genuinely hurt or upset. I mean, obviously, it's a pressure cooker environment, but it makes good TV, and I'm sure that was what it felt like. So. After obviously, so you had your tension. Obviously, I think that could have lasted a few episodes, and then Hannah was also involved a bit later on. And I think obviously there was clearly some tension between Beverly and a few other people. Nothing against Beverly, I love Beverly, but there was clearly that sort of tension. Yeah, she's a sweetheart. But yes. What I was curious about is obviously you as contestants are kind of kept in your rooms, you're sequestered in your rooms and everything. So did you actually ever have a chance to talk to Beverly or whoever you're having a problem with on set, or does it kind of fester because the producers are deliberately keeping it that way?
Definitely, like that they keep you aside from each other, so you can't talk about anything that happens unless you're on camera. And so we, you know, for the most part, we kind of like squashed it for the most part, you know, as much as we could. Again, like the turnover is really quick. It's like every second episode someone's gone, and then you're back in the workroom, and if there was tension, like the episode or the week before yesterday. Like, you know, unless you like magically healed just up and walked in with a new attitude, like there's definitely going to be residual feelings. And so I think it was definitely something that both of us needed to take time and space away from each other. I know that she learned a lot from that interaction. I definitely did as well. You know, I wasn't innocent in the way that we went back and forth. But again, like there isn't really much that I would have changed about the conversation that we had, because I feel like it needed to be had between the two of us. And then also the way that we sort of like squashed it, which wasn't completely squashed during the season, but it was squashed outside of the season. I think it's made us as people and also as friends and as sisters, you know, have a greater understanding of each other. And I think too, maybe it was 21 when we filmed that. And so like, you know, I know she was going through her own sort of like ups and downs. Like I was definitely going up and down like an absolute maniac. So I can only imagine what her version of that would have been. And by the time we got to our clash, like, you know, for me, I was like, no, I'm not letting you get away with this today, darling. Like, you're gonna get everything from here. Like, boom, boom, boom. Like, I got the guns out. I was like shooting. I was just shooting away. So definitely would like, in hindsight, change my approach, especially because she was feeling her own feelings. So it is what it is. That's part of being a drag mom and a house mother as well. You know, making mistakes. Not everyone's perfect.
And I was just sort of wondering, you did talk about this earlier, but I was wondering, so obviously we were talking about obviously you and Beverly. So what is your relationship like now then, in terms of how long after the show did you reconcile, or did you reconcile while you were still there?
Yeah, we reconciled while we're still there. I don't think we really had much of an issue together. I think, you know, we were really conscious that like we were in a heated environment. Like we did know each other beforehand. And I think, you know, the thing we knew that were going to put us against each other for was the fact that we're both live performance queens. And so I think, you know, after the show was done, we had a bit of time and space away from each other. And then we came back together and sort of kikied and laughed it off. But I think generally speaking, like, you know, I have so much respect for Beverly. Like she is one of those performers here in Australia that is definitely a performer's performer. You know, like, you know, I've definitely heard many a podcast or like a review show of people going, yeah, but can Kween and Beverly do a ballad? And to my response to that is, unless you're singing a ballad, I would prefer to see acrobatics and stunts, because those things are a lot more tricky than standing in a gown and moving your face to a song that you're not singing. So I mean that in the most offensive way possible, and you know who you are. But Beverly is literally one of those performers that anyone can watch her and just go, this is amazing. And she is incredible. She does a lot of things that I'm such a huge fan, and I can't wait to see where she goes, what she does, and all the sort of walls that she breaks down, because she definitely has done that for some sort of the queens that identify with her a lot, you know. As a 22-year-old, oh my God, as if I think I was doing caps on a dance floor at 22 in a nightclub in Europe. Definitely not thinking about an influence that you have on people. So, you know, she's doing amazing, and I love and respect her.
No, she said the same thing about you. She said like she looked up to you so much, and I think that was part of what caused the problems, was she looked up to you and then felt like she wasn't necessarily maybe being given the respect, or like maybe it was just a misunderstanding.